Welcome to the Gita in Action podcast. My name's Radha, and I'm here with our regular family of seekers. Many are back after the holidays, which is so exciting. I love being here with. I feel like I see all my best friends on Monday and Thursday mornings. So nice to be here back with you guys. And today we're continuing our journey through chapter 9 of the Bhagavad Gita. This is the heart of the Bhakti section, and it's really special. So we're going to get into it. We're going to start with text 23. We're starting with text 23 today, chapter 9. Text 23, chapter 9. And before we start, Shakti, do you want to say our prayers for us?
Yes, and I will say I printed out the Mangala Charanam prayers, and I'm going to stay with this set of prayers because I feel like I'm saying different prayers every time I pray, and I want everyone to be able to follow along. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Is that okay?
perfect. That's perfect. Thank you. And if some point you want to send them to me and I can like sh start sharing screens so that people can even see them, we can do that too. Next time, maybe.
Yeah.
Let's do that next time.
Oh, okay. Okay. I like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Om Agyana Timirandasya Yananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Umilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Bishtam Shtapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kara Mayam Dadati Sva Pandatikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadvahutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitams Cha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kancha Garungi Radhe Vrindavan Ishvari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Prananami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tirubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavembhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Prachayane Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschataya Deshatarayane Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadahara Shri Vasariguru Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Beautiful. Thank you, Shakti. So nice. So today we're gonna try to cover 4 verses, and I just kind of want to give you a high level before we dive into it. The first 3 verses talk about demigod worship. We've talked about the different stages of God realization, and demigod worship is one of them. You know, where you start to realize there's some order, there's some control to the universe. And in that you start to develop a relationship with the managerial positions of the universe. So supreme God, and he has managerial positions like administrators who are responsible for certain divisions of the universe. And when people approach the demigods, oftentimes it pretty much is in a mood of like a transactional kind of relationship, like a metaphysical Amazon Prime. Like can you give me some rain so that my crops grow? Or can you, help my fertility so that I can have a baby? Or, it's kind of a transactional relationship, which when we talk about love, we know that kind of mood, that kind of approach to a relationship is just lower level. Love is like the highest. And we're going to talk about this today. Love is selfless. Love is sacrifice. Love is putting others before yourself. But in this kind of preliminary relationship to that, it's more transactional. And it's not bad because it's important on the yogic ladder. It's a step on the yogic ladder, right? Because God meets us wherever we are. So if that's where we are, God says, okay, let me facilitate that for you. And that's where this relationship with demigods comes in. I'll facilitate that so that you can have that kind of relationship because that's what you desire. That's where you are. You're still pretty materially attached. You think you know what's best. That's okay. I'll give you a way to still approach me and to still make progress. So that's where we're going with the demigods. And we'll just go through those three verses relatively quickly so that we can get to kind of like the dessert of the class, which is really like the main course. It's like ice cream for dinner is where we're going here. And that's this beautiful verse 926 where it's a real bhakti verse. And that's what I really want to kind of spend a lot of time on today. Does that sound good? Okay, let's start then. Stella, when you're ready, can you read verse 923 for us?
Yes. Ye anya devata bhakta yajante shraddhayan vitaha te pimam eva kanteya yayanti adviti purupakam. I won't keep doing it. Those who are devotees of other gods and who worship them with faith actually worship only me, O son of Kunti, but they do so in a wrong way.
Thank you. So Krishna's saying something, gentle but clear here. He's again explaining people that are worshiping or that are approaching demigods, this relationship. And he's saying they're still worshiping him, but it's just indirectly. Okay, so he's not dismissing their sincerity. Their faith is real. He tells us that. If we remember in the Gita, he
No,
tells us that he's the
pretty
one
much.
that gives them faith in the first place. But he's just pointing out here that it's not direct. The connection is not direct because they're going again to that kind of managerial position. It's like a child who runs away from home and the parents want the child to come back, but they know that the child won't listen to them. So they send someone else, like a teacher or a relative, a guide to kind of help find their way back. So again, this is the relationship with demigods. And this helper, it's not this helper's not the source of the love, but they're a bridge. And that's what Krishna is saying here. So again, this connection is real because ultimately all power, all faith, it comes from God, but it's a step along the way. It's not the final destination. And the invitation is to really come home, into this direct, loving relationship. And Prabhupada, he uses a strong comparison here. He says this kind of approach is improper. He compares it to bribing an official, which can sound intense if we take it the wrong way, but he's not saying that it's like illegal or sinful. He's just saying that it's missing this deeper relationship. Because when somebody like bribes an official, they're not interested, in relationship. They just want that result. And so that's again what demigod worship is here. And Vedic culture allows for this. It recognizes people are at different stages and it provides that ladder to facilitate this. So it's this kind of worship, it's not rejected, it's just not the final destination. And Krishna and Prabhupada they're always speaking from the highest goal, this transcendence. The stage where devotion, it's not transactional. It's not just bargaining. It's love. So that's where we're going. And that's what Krishna's saying here. You can approach different gods for different outcomes, but you can go straight to Krishna because he's the source of them all. He's the source of them all. So that's 23. We're just gonna kind of zoom through these first three, and then I hope we can really sit and kind of marinate together in this last one, if that's okay. So let's move on to 24. Whenever you're ready, Stella.
Aham hai sarva jnanam bhokta cha prabhur eva cha na tu mam abhijananti tatvinatas chavanti te. I am the only enjoyer and master of all sacrifices. Therefore, those who do not recognize my true transcendental nature fall down.
Thank you. So again, Krishna's kind of continuing this train of thought here. He's saying, I'm the real enjoyer and master of sacrifice. And people that don't recognize me in truth, they fall down. And let's just like double click on this word fall here, this fall down. I'm gonna zoom into that. Krishna's not saying this to threaten anyone. He's just describing how things naturally work. So he's just kind of laying it out, and we'll just to kind of like recap the past few verses and to show how we got here. In verses 20 to 21, he explains that people who worship the demigods, they can reach higher heavenly situations. He tells us that. But remember, we learned those situations are temporary. They're temporary. And eventually, when the good results run out, people are going to fall back down. And they fall back down to this earthly planet. So those heavenly planets are where people kind of expend their karmic credits. We compared this to like a luxury vacation. And when your bank account runs out, you have to come back down. And then in verse 22, he contrasts that with devotion to him, where he personally protects what we have and he carries us forward. We talked about that the last class. Beautiful verse. And then we just learned in verse 23, he clarifies that the worship of other gods is still indirect. It's indirect, but it's still connected to him. But it's not the same result. It's not the same result. So now in this verse, Krishna is explaining why those results are different. And the difference is understanding. Because if we don't actually understand who Krishna is, not just like vaguely or in an abstract way, but in truth, if we don't actually understand who he is, then we don't seek him as the ultimate goal. And if we don't seek him, we won't end up with him. Because as we've learned in the Gita and we've experienced directly in life, we ultimately get what we desire. What we desire and what we deserve. Right? Our karma plays a big impact. But what we desire, what our consciousness is fixed on, is ultimately what's going to manifest. So Krishna just keeps bringing us back again and again. I am the ultimate enjoyer, the ultimate master of sacrifice. So if someone wants temporary improvement, temporary relief, temporary enjoyment, they'll get it. They'll get it. And then when it's over, they come back to where they started. Because God's not forcing himself into anybody's life. He's not intervening and saying, no, you have to want me instead. Anybody ever been in a relationship like that? You have to want me. You have to want to spend time with me. That's not love. Krishna doesn't do that. He's response to what we're actually aiming for. This is love because he loves us. So when Krishna says here people fall, he doesn't mean they're punished. He's just explaining how things work. He's explaining they're going to return back into this cycle of ups and downs because that's ultimately what they want. But if we understand Krishna in truth, we can move towards something eternal. And if we don't, we're just going to keep cycling through the temporary highs and lows. And Krishna's leaving that choice up to us. This is a beautiful thing about the Gita. He explains it all. He says, this is you. You're in this material body, you're this material package, the mind, a body, your soul is inside of this. This is the material nature, material energy. This is how it works. This is how they all work together. This is who I am. Make your choice. So he's not pushing us in any direction. He's explaining it all to us and then giving us that free will to decide. So it's really beautiful in that way. I really appreciate that about the Gita because I'm a person who doesn't like to be told what to do. If you tell me what to do, my mom likes to tell this story where she's like, you and your sister were so different. I would tell your sister, don't touch that hot stove. You would just come right over and touch it. As soon as I tell you not to touch it. Your sister, she would have no problem not touching it. She would just walk away. You would just go right over and touch that stove. So it's like you can't tell me what to do. Yeah, because I'm going to do it. But if to tell me like how this is all set up and then give me the choice, that's what's going to make me run towards love. Yeah, that's been my experience, which is maybe why I just click with the Gita so well in this particular path because it's never felt forced or it's never felt like do this and you're good, don't do this and you're bad. It's just this is the reality. This is reality. Try it on. Choose your way. Okay, so let's move on to 25.
Yanti deva vrata devan pritrin yanti pritvrata bhutani yanti bhutedya yanti madhyan jinopimam. Those who worship the demigods will take birth amongst the demigods. Those who worship the ancestors will go to the ancestors. Those who worship ghosts and spirits will take birth among such beings. And those who worship me will live with me.
Thank you. So do you guys see how Krishna is just continuing this line of thought here? He's explaining even in even more detail that those who worship go to that destination that they worship, to whomever they're worshiping. So this verse, something important to note about this verse is it's very clear and categorical contradiction to the popular notion that all paths lead to the same goal. That's not what Krishna is saying here. He's saying different paths lead to different destinations, and all forms of worship are not necessarily the same. So whatever your mind is fixed on, and we've heard this verse in the Gita, we've talked about this many times. Whatever your mind is fixed on is what's going to determine, it's creating a template for your destiny, for your future. So we have to be careful what we're putting our consciousness into because it's manifesting our destiny. So after describing this, Krishna's now we're getting to the verse, the ice cream for dinner dessert or verse that I really want to zoom in on today. He's going to contrast devotional service and worship of the demigods in another way in terms of the simplicity of worship. So this is where we're going. Because when we're worshiping the demigods, in Vedic times, when they're worshiping the demigods, they have these elaborate yagyas to be performed. So these elaborate sacrifices, and it's very technical. It has to be very specific. And it takes a lot of resources, and if it's done just right, then one can please the gods. So it's very like it's like perfect. It has to be like perfect. We talked about a nice restaurant that you have to make a reservation at, and you have to show up just on time, and that's how you get in. Right? Compared to if you know the owner and you have a close relationship with the owner and you could just it's much more simple. You can just say, yeah, let's go to the restaurant. I know the owner, no problem. So this is the difference between a relationship with the source and kind of this transactional lower level relationship. So now we can go into 926, which is the verse I want to talk about a lot today. But before I do that, has anything come up for anybody that anybody would like to share? I know I've kind of been like zooming through, so I want to just like pause and give anybody the opportunity to share anything that's come up for you in these three verses. Shakti.
So I love these verses, and I agree with you. I love that flow. I'm in the middle of my Bhakti Shastri, and we're in Nectar of Devotion, and it's really very like it's on a same level where it talks about the different levels of love and the Raganuga Bhakti and Raghunatha Bhakti and Bhava. What is Bhava and what is devotional love? And so I was looking because my book was sitting here from class this weekend, And I was looking at it, I'm like, oh yeah, this is kind of like what it's talking about, that there's Baba Bhakti, then sadhana, then the mercy. So there's all these different ways. And what we talked about a lot was that Krishna gives us, he's so merciful that he gives us all these different ways to reach him, right? And sometimes maybe it's not Baba, maybe you're not in Baba yet, but you can still reach him and you can still grow in that section and maybe end up in Baba, right? So it's really this beautiful essence, it talks about like the love of the gopis, like, so all these different ways that we as people, as we, how do we love, Krishna. And it talks about, like, do you love him like a gopi? Do you love him like Mother Yashoda? Do you love him like all these different ways? And so it just reminded me of that as you started talking about Krishna and the love. It's so, like, I'm so grateful. Like, he just is so merciful that it's not like I don't have to pull back, I don't have to go forward. I can be where I'm at and love him and continue to grow in that love for him.
Mm.
So that's
Yes. Exactly. It's so beautiful. And when I came into this path, I totally agree. That's a beautiful part about this path that we learn is like love is a spectrum and we're all on a journey. And depending on where your consciousness is, your capacity for that is going to be different. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur makes a really nice uh, correlation between this consciousness and your state of love. And we've all talked about this. You have fear-based love, where you're doing things out of fear. And then you have duty-based love, which is a little bit higher. Oh no, actually, it's fear, and then you have that transactional love, where it's like Amazon Prime transactional. I'll do this, you do that, right? Then you get to this place of duty, and then you get to this place of love. So it's like we're all on this journey. And I'll share a really vulnerable moment, and especially since Anuradha's on this call, I told her I was going to share this on the podcast. I actually couldn't wait to share this with you guys. I was talking to Anuradha. I was kind of like venting about my husband, like a way that I didn't feel a reciprocation, in something that I did. I had gotten him a gift, and I didn't feel like he really like cared, So I was like really just kind of like venting. And my good friend Anuradha, who's on this call, I'm so happy she's on this call. She's like, Radha, I want to slap you right now. She's like, stop. She's like, Jeff could be such a good teacher for you and your bhakti. You have to learn to give without expectation. That's what bhakti is. That's what bhakti is. We don't give so that we get something back. That's such a low level of consciousness. That's such a low level of love. We give because because we love. And there's such a difference there. And when she told me this, I was like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. I can't believe I didn't see that. Like I teach this stuff, but when it's so close in your life, sometimes it's very easy to miss. So she's like, I want to challenge you every day, do one thing for Jeff that you do without expectation, and that you're just doing because you love him. And I was like, okay, challenge accepted. Challenge accepted. Let's just try to change this. And what happens is when we change this and we focus more on giving love than receiving love, love is born. And this is bhakti. This is bhakti. And bhakti yoga is love for the divine. It is connection with God. But we can all practice this in our own lives because we see it show up all the time. And that's the system that God's created for us. We're so fortunate. Okay, Erin, I want to hear from you. What do you have?
Well, that was so beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Um, so I actually just have like a clarifying question because one of the first lectures that like really stuck with me, image of the mountain, right? And all the different paths up. And um, the lecture was very much about like, all of these paths lead to the top of the mountain, but some are easier and some are a lot more difficult. And what you were just saying with this last verse about like, the different paths lead to different destinations is kind of contrary to that. But I'm curious, and I am wondering if like, is the difference between those two analogies like the difference of worshiping God by any name and any faith and any like religious path versus like the vast difference of worshiping God versus worshiping a demigod, or
Mm.
like what, I guess, like what is the difference between those two analogies that seem contradictory?
Yeah, yeah. This is a really good point and a good question because it is easy to say all paths lead to God, and we hear that. And while all paths, may be God, they don't all necessarily lead to the same place. And that mountain analogy you're talking about, there can be paths that are just like at the bottom of the mountain circumambulating it. There can be paths that take you halfway up the mountain. So these paths, they have benefit. At least you're near the mountain. At least you're walking up the mountain. But supreme love of God, the top of the mountain, you have to have a path that's designed to bring you there. And not all of them are. And demigod worship, is a perfect example. And that's what Vedic teaching is telling us here, is that it'll take you halfway up the mountain or maybe a fourth the way up the mountain. But don't mistake that false plateau for the top of the mountain. Anybody ever climbed a mountain and got to the and thought you got to the top and you're like, oh my gosh, this is not the top. I used to hike a lot. It's like the worst feeling ever. But this is what the Vedic that's what the Gita is warning us against here. Don't mistake it for being the top of the mountain. Yeah, it's still my path. God is absolute. God is everything. But not every path brings you to that highest level of love for God. Does that make sense?
Um, I have a like comment after on this too when you're done.
Wonderful. Uh,
No, it
Aaron?
makes sense. I think it's like most things in bhakti where it's like you get this lesson or analogy or something, and it's like very black and white. And then you like go a little bit deeper and it's like, okay, well, it's not so black and white, So I think it's just like, yeah, it makes sense. And it's just like deepening the analogy rather than, because I feel like that happens to me a lot where I see something and it's like, oh, this is totally contradictory too. But I don't think that's true either. So, um, yeah, I think that was super helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Uh,
Janardan, what do you have for us?
Someone who takes the bath of bhakti is not neglected of any of the results of fruitive action, of economic development, of religiosity and liberation. So I kind of feel like that's Krishna's mercy. Like you
Mm,
can look at it from that angle, and Krishna will bring you to Goloka Vrindavan. But you can also look at it from that angle. And it's kind of like being a police chief. He's also, if you're talking to a police chief, he fills the role of an officer, a lieutenant, and a clerk because they're all subordinate to him.
yes. Exactly. Beautiful. Thanks, Janardan. Yeah, Bhakti's the elevator right up. You're still gonna you're still gonna get to this false peak and to this little mountain. But but if you take the elevator right up, we just get to go straight to the top. We don't have to like sweat and grunt all the way up. We could just hop on the elevator and right up we go. And that's actually exactly where we're going next.
Radha,
We're
can I
go-
just ask you a question?
yeah.
Um, I'm also, and this is what I feel like I learned is that worshiping the demigods oftentimes, and I'm sharing this because you brought it up, Aaron, but the demigods oftentimes, like Ganesha is the one who's going to remove the obstacles, and this one's Lakshmi is the one who's going to give you money, right? So the demigods have these like this one will give you money, this one that this is why this is kind of what they're known for. Whereas with Krishna, he's going to give you love of God. He's going to bring you to Brahma Jyoti. He's bringing you
Higher
all the way
than
up to
Brahmajyoti.
the
Yeah.
penthouse. Whereas Lakshmi is going to be like on floor number 3, and offering you some money. And that's kind of, I think, an easier way, a very simplistic way. Someone taught me that, and so I'm just reaching that out to you. I don't know if it makes sense to you, Erin, but that was how someone explained kind of the demigods, and then Krishna being, because there's nothing that I never, when I think of Krishna, I don't think of that he's going to give me anything except love of Krishna, and bring my consciousness to a higher plateau. But when I think of the demigods, I do think that they are for, like I said, Lakshmi is known. I'm going to play for my Lakshmi. Go into a lot of the cabs in India, they have a Ganesha on their, or Lakshmi on their dashboard. So I don't know. That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah,
Take it as worth.
that's exactly what it is, Shakti. That's exactly what it is. And when your capacity for love is at that level, that transactional level, you're not ready to surrender. You're still wanting control of your life and wanting to dictate the terms. Then again, Krishna facilitates that for you. So you can say, I want a good husband. I want a nice job. I want a new car. And you approach God's representatives for this. But exactly true. When you're really ready to say, God, I just want relationship with you. And relationship with you means that I trust you as the controller of my life. And I just want my life's purpose to be centered around this relationship. And I want to live from that place. That's the highest, right? This is relationship with the supreme, when we're ready to just surrender. I was just listening to a lecture Radha Swami was giving to an AA group, Alcoholics Anonymous, and he said, you guys are in such a good place, better place than most of the people in existence, because you guys are at the place where you've been forced to realize that you have a problem, and that you're powerless, and that you need God. And he said something like, the reality is that everybody is powerless and needs God, but people don't realize it. But this program, he said, this AA, this Alcoholics Anonymous, is one of the most successful programs that I've seen in bringing people to that place, because that's what it does. You have this addiction that's just bringing you so low that you're forced, you're brought so low down to your knees that you're forced to recognize the reality that you need something higher than yourself to get out, that you're not God, that you're not the highest, and in that it facilitates such this mood of surrender, and they realize this at a very deep level. It's not just like theoretical, or it's not just like, something that you hear and move on with your life. It's like, no, that they realize this at such a deep level because it's a necessity for their survival. And for this, they are very fortunate. This is the greatest fortune. So, they go through all they go through, and this is terrible. But they come to this realization, and it's a very high realization that most people don't obtain in this lifetime. Janardhan.
I also think, like, well, what about Narada Muni? What about Ganesh, who scribed for Vyas? There's these positions. Are they actually demigods? Or is it actually like how the Lord is everywhere? He's still the Lord, you know? And should we strive for those positions? And or should we surrender and just trust that Krishna will put us in the best position, just like a kid saying, I want to go to this college because they got more parties. No, I really think it's in your best interest to go here. How can we look at that? Because not all demigods are bad, and even the naughty Indra is
No.
constantly given.
Demigods, no. Demigods are not bad. Demigods are
Mm.
great devotees of Krishna. I mean, they're servants of God. They perform a very important service. They're not bad at all. Um,
But
and
Krishna constantly says, don't worship them directly. Like when his own father, they were worshiping Indra, and those demigods, they were upset because they actually wanted the pious yajna. They live off yagya like we live off food.
Well, demigods can be a little bit power hungry, and because they're still materially motivated. And that's why they acquire the post that they do, because they wanted it. They wanted all this power. They wanted all this opulence. So Krishna says, you can have it. And he gives them a post, a position to serve him, which is beautiful. He cares about their spiritual life too, but they're very materially motivated. So he facilitates that for them in a way that they could still serve him, and they can still live out their desires. But what we see with a lot of the stories we hear about the demigods is that they do fall into conflict, and because their power gets the best of them. And that's what happened with Indra. We hear a lot of stories about Indra, or Brahma. We could go on and on. That these stories where their power gets the best of them, and they act in ways that aren't fully surrendered devotees to God, because they haven't acquired that yet. So when he says worship me, it's because he's trying to bring everybody there. He's telling everybody this, just worship me directly, because he's not wanting us to come back as a demigod, but if we want to, we can. It's available for us. Does this make sense?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you,
Yeah,
Shakti.
I think, we can look at like you said, the demigods are his servants, so that's how we should view them, like with great love. Like we could even love them, but in that way of, wow, they're really serving Krishna. Like how great is that? And with respect, and just as you would, with courtesy, like to someone who's
Yes.
doing a good job, which is so, this, yeah, they're not bad. In fact, they, if you see them in that light, it helps you see the whole worldview of how Krishna arranges everything. So that's a good thing if you can keep it in the right perspective.
Yes, exactly. And that's the relationship we try to cultivate with demigods, is that of respect. And we see
Yeah,
them as great devotees of God. But we don't approach them to fulfill our
sure.
material desires, because we're really seeking relationship with God.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So nice. Does anybody else want to share?
Um, I want ice cream for breakfast.
Ice cream for breakfast. Yes. Okay. Should we move on to the ice cream for breakfast verse?
Could I have one? I can't figure out how to do my hand. When
Yes.
just because I come from this as a different perspective, but one of the things that I look at is, um, I've also done this study of like the sacred flames. So when I look at God or source, and then I see flames coming out, so the source would be the main, like a sun and all the rays. And so whether because I love my angels or the demigods, I see them as one of the rays, and they all go into. And so sometimes the ray is out, like farther away, just because that's where I'm at. Where am I going to go to it? So when it all connect, that's how I look at it. I could be off, and again, I'm coming from this as a different perspective, but it just gives me a warmth and a help guidance. So that's what I look at.
Wow. Meg, I appreciate that perspective so much. And I love that you're making connections between the paths, because I think that's so important. And it really shows what an essence seeker you are, and how broad-minded you are to be able to draw those parallels and kind of translate this to the principle, kind of distill it down to the principle, and then see that commonality. And I really appreciate that about you. And thank you for sharing. I'm not actually familiar with the seven, so I can't speak to that directly, but I really appreciate your ability to do that. Thank you.
I just wanted to share, Narayani put in the group in the
Oh,
chat,
thank you.
there would be no other reason to approach the demigods that other than material reasons. There's no reason
Yes.
to approach them other than something material.
Yes, exactly. That is their role. That's why, again, Krishna meets us where we're at, wherever our capacity for love is. And if our capacity for love is that of transactional, I want this, I'll give you this, you give me this. He says, okay, this is the system which you can practice that in. And because the demigods are my servants, because they're connected to me, they work for me, that's you're still making progress towards me. Yeah, exactly. Perfect. Thank you. You guys really did so good taking something that's can be kind of an esoteric or very unfamiliar concept for some and making it real, and relatable. So thank you.
I don't, we're sitting here going, well, I mean, like the demigods are devotees of God, so
Yeah.
I don't know, like we have a picture of Shiva in our front vestibule because he guards coming into where there's an like the house belongs to Krishna and there's an altar and hopefully Vrindavan and that he can guard that. And so I don't know, like I feel like we approach Lord Shiva as like a facilitator of service as well.
Yeah, I mean, we can respect their roles and we can have, a level of relationship with them and understanding their role, but ultimately we understand that it all comes from Krishna.
Yes, thank
So
you.
it's maybe a subtlety there.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not like
Thank
we
you.
need to just like avoid them and throw them out and demigods. That's not the case at all. We respect them, we appreciate them, we acknowledge them, but we understand that it all comes from Krishna. And that's really where we put our faith. All of our eggs in that basket.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Stella. Anybody else? I didn't expect to have such conversation around these verses, but I'm so glad we did. But I feel like I don't want to move on to the next one because I really want to do justice to the next one, and we don't have a ton of time. So if there's any other discussion or anything that is coming up for anybody with these verses, we can do
Can I,
that.
can I say something?
Please.
For me, it's always a little bit more, um, it's not so understanding. So because we were born in the whole demigod stuff with all the demigods and not Krishna being there, right? So and when I say we, I mean generally speaking, we worship them, and but from another understanding is that before Krishna came, there were so many forms that God took, which is Lord Narayan, you know. He took so many Vishnu forms before Krishna. And so Ganesha, Mother Durga, Lord Shiva, Sri Ram, Lord Shiva, all of them were there. And so before the Bhagavad Gita came, and so people worship Lord Rama, they worship Lord Vishnu, who is actually the ultimate form of who Lord Krishna was. And so I agree where you said that, where everyone is agreeing that it's not the ultimate, but for me personally, when I go to worship, I worship all of them. I pay obeisance to them. But I don't ask for anything, you know? I don't ask for anything. I just want to get moksha. I don't want to be born again. Regardless if that's my path. But I'm just saying from another perspective where that's what people were brought up with at the time, from generation to generation, and it was passed down to us. Like, we
Yeah.
we we, we didn't know. We didn't do Bhagavad Gita. We didn't do Ramayana was there, it was more prevalent at the time, which focused on Sri Ram, and Sri Ram is an avatar of Lord Vishnu. And so it's a bit complicated for me, even though I understand. It's not complicated for me, sorry. I understand exactly what you're saying, but I'm just speaking from other people's perspective because we have a mandir where we have all the deities there, including Lord Krishna. Our mandir is Radha Krishna Mandir. And trying to make people make people understand the path is not an easy one because they're so believed in what they're doing. And I always tell them, I try to impart the knowledge, but it doesn't go anywhere. Many times it doesn't go anywhere. But for me, I want to say, I want to acknowledge that Lord Vishnu and Sri Ram, they have their paths and could you worship them and get the same moksha as if you go to Lord Krishna directly? Would that be possible?
You said,
No.
sorry.
I said, I don't know if let's say there are certain people who just love Lord Rama and there's certain people who just love Lord Vishnu and they would pray to them directly. And they're all the same person. They're all, Krishna is Vishnu, Krishna is Ram. Would they get the same liberation as one that goes directly to Krishna?
Yeah. Is Anuradha on this call? Anuradha, she's muted. Anuradha, I know you asked me not to call you out, but I want to call you out on this question. Are you listening?
Yes. What's the question?
If people that worship Ram or Vishnu, if they get the same destination as Krishna.
Ram or Vishnu? Yes, absolutely. I mean, that's what I think.
Yeah.
What
Why
do
is
you,
that?
I mean, I would say Ram is non-different to Krishna, except that he doesn't have some of Krishna's opulences, you know? That's why sometimes Prabhupada says we don't have to go out of our way to even celebrate Ram Navami. We can celebrate Ram Navami just the way we celebrate Janmashtami, with the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So I never felt too much differently, except for the opulences of Ram is different from the sweetness of Krishna. And for me, it was just easier to make that internal switch to just kind of completely embrace just falling into the worship of Krishna, because it was just easier, I would say.
Thank you. Thanks, Anu. Narayani, did you want to share something?
Hare Krishna. Yes, I hope I don't get a call because I'm working, but I'm working from home. I was just going to comment on, what was her name? Anita. It almost sounded a bit that she was almost sorry, or a little, I don't know in what way to describe it, that she got grew up with this tradition of worshiping demigods. And from what I understand, is that people who grow up in, I want to assume, Indian bodies, Indian families, and they worship demigods, they're already so pious that this is already a very great benefit. Because just a very poor example, I grew up in East Germany, and there was no religion whatsoever somehow supported. And the way I grew up, I realized when I entered that path of bhakti that I have a lot of unlearning to do, unlearning from the things that I believed in when I was little and when I grow up, and what I was taught in school. And maybe we all have to accept that we have a little bit, or some have a lot of unlearning to do. And so when Anita is worshiping the let's say, the altar her parents or her grandparents worshipped, then that still shows a lot of respect to demigods. But then we learned that Krishna, he's the original, the one without a second, the cause of all causes. And so that's my 2 cents. Hare Krishna. I hope that helps.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, Narayani. I want to end here. Just kind of a reflection I've been going through of my own life. I've talked on the podcast a bit about my dad. He's an alcoholic and is kind of catching up to him right now. Over the past week or so, his organs have kind of been shutting down. And I've been doing a lot of reflection, of my dad. And growing up, he was just so determined and so like, I am the strongest. Nobody can get in my way. I am so, he was almost like this, like Hiranyakashipu kind of mentality. Like he really thought that he was God. Like this is how I felt. And me as a little kid, like I kind of believed that. And so kind of now as an adult and with this background that I have watching him go through this disease, alcoholism, and he can't let go of alcohol. He's just so pulled by it. And seeing him kind of be conquered by it, and conquered by disease and we know death is kind of coming. It's really kind of a humbling experience because somebody that I kind of viewed as God in one sense, I'm seeing kind of be conquered by disease and death. And I'm seeing that it's like increasing my faith in God. And it's also really hard and sad to see, this happen to somebody that I saw as so strong growing up, because he's an alcoholic, but wow, he is strong and he is smart and he is determined. So I'm seeing this firsthand. And I guess kind of my reflection around it is how easy it is, even if you don't worship demigods, even if you don't, you don't even really know what they are, right? Just this concept of thinking that you're the controller, thinking that you're God, wanting to be the most powerful, the strongest, kind of taking that position that is rightfully God's. When we kind of get into that mentality, it's really the cause of our own demise. And I've seen that firsthand because my dad just cannot let go of alcohol. He can't admit that anything has any power over him. And it's just pulling him down so hard and so fast. And, I'm grateful for this knowledge that I had the great mercy and to meet devotees and to have this knowledge. And because I myself was so much like that when I was younger, I was so much like that. I really looked up to my dad and I was so much like that. And I feel like this knowledge has really saved me from myself in that regard, because this is what happens when we start to adopt that kind of demoniac mentality. And so I'm grateful. I'm grateful, and I'm grateful for all of you that you're here and that we're going on this journey together, and that you're all sharing so vulnerably and imbibing this knowledge and really, really participating and being up for the ride and the journey. So thank you all. Thank you all for the discussion and for the
Radha,
open-hearted conversation.
Radha, sorry, just quickly.
Yeah.
Thanks. I remember like the magnet, the little phrase that goes along with what we've been saying is life is uncertain. Eat dessert first. And it was making me think how like, and with your dad, what you were just speaking about, like sometimes I think about with the demigods, like I don't really worry or think about them too much. I kind of focus on Krishna, and I don't know a lot about the demigods, honestly. But I was thinking how maybe that sort of is like, us saying, okay, I'm going to pray to this demigod because I think I know I need this. And that's us not giving up to Krishna's, path and amazing plan for us, and us being like the in the driver's seat without Krishna. Like, oh, I'll go to this demigod because I know that I need that's the thing I need. And that's really, that's not where I think the focus on Krishna for me is a lot more joyful and fulfilling. And yeah, just wanted to add that. All right, Ball.
Bingo. Bingo. Beautiful realization. Thank you, Kitty. Before we go, we haven't heard a lot from Stella or Kalachandri. Do you guys want to wrap us up here? Do you have any concluding?
Yeah. Wait, is it? I think can you hear us? We're
Oh,
driving.
okay. Try. Yeah.
Yeah, I think part of it is, I find this in the Christian church, because we go to church and all that, too, and that liberation is the highest goal. Like, and it's, I think in Bhakti Yoga, we learn that it's not the highest goal. So, it's a fine goal. But, and I think, wherever you're at, it's better to, look for that than not to look for liberation. But, that whole thing of salvation, it's like, and it was only in Bhakti Yoga that I learned the prayer, I don't even need to be liberated. Just don't let me forget you. Send me to hell and just don't let me forget you. So like that desire for liberation, I think is some place on the mountain, but it's not the topmost peak.
Yes. Beautiful. Exactly. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Stella.
you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Much love to everyone. Hare Bol. Please accept my humble
Me
obeisances.
too. I just want love.
Thank you, Kalachandji. Thank you. Such realized souls we have here on this podcast. Thank you all. Yeah. Okay, friends. Well, that is our time together. We are going to have to wait till Thursday to have our dessert, but the whole class will be just a big ice cream party. So get ready. And thank you all. Thank you all. It's such an honor to be here with all of you and your realizations. Really appreciate you all. See you Thursday.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.